Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door. That was pretty tricky last night, wasn't it? On the watch along, leaving our bias at the door. A frustrating night for England, who lost 2-0 to Belgium. And you can see their Nations League hopes ended. Belgium moving on to 12 points, England on 7. Even a late goal by Denmark there, rubbing salt into the wound as they moved seemingly unassailably ahead of England. So unless we get a very big swing, the best England are going to do is finish second in that group, which will be considered by many as a failure and which will get tongues wagging and pressure rising. Look, we're going to do a little video now. We're going to talk about Gareth Southgate. We're going to talk about England and where they are under Southgate. Hopefully you know the channel by now. This is not a hit piece. This is not an emotional Southgate out type nonsense. But I think it's worthwhile having a look now because it does feel in his tenure now, to use a horrible football cliche, that he is at a bit of a crossroads, and we'll go through why. He's got a contract for the Euros and for the next World Cup, so it feels like some decisions may need to be made on his part in order to maybe move on to Southgate team number 2 and go forward and progress. This is not hopefully an overreaction to last night, but I do want to ask the question, where are England going under Gareth Southgate? Just quickly on last night, we really can't use that as a single factor analysis, that 190 minutes to look at where Southgate's going. We can use that in the context of maybe a year or so of, I don't know, a little bit of, I don't know what the right word to use is, coasting, transition. Transition is fine if you come out the other end and you find, as I say, what we need, Southgate team number 2. Let's be honest, last night, if you watched, you'll know, deflected goal after 9 minutes, a couple of reasonable chances not taken, and then a worldy free kick after 23. Belgium sit back and England, as seemingly they have done for decades now, get picked off by a, quote, more savvy international team. Just remember, though, when we go through Southgate's tenure, that's what we were doing a couple of years back to other teams. So just quickly to go through Southgate's tenure. Remember the Sam Allardyce hullabaloo. Southgate's made interim boss after Big Sam misses his chance, wastes his chance. Let's not go into that now as England manager, having got there. Aged 46 there, he's made permanent manager on the 30th of November 2016. In the end, it was kind of the right thing to do, wasn't it? We'd had the indignity of going out to Iceland in those Euros in Euro 2016, and then Allardyce was going to be the right, take the grizzled old England guy who'll get us hard to beat and put him in. That barely lasted a game, didn't it? So in comes Southgate, who we know is how do I say it? He's not a beta male, but he's less an overt alpha male than a lot of football managers are. A lot of them are very brash, very forward, very outwardly charismatic. Southgate's quiet and sort of gently spoken and considered, which is absolutely fine. Arsene Wenger could be like that, but he could also be an absolute fireball Arsene Wenger, couldn't it? But it was a bit different, and in comes Southgate. World Cup 2018 qualifiers, nearly perfect. Look at that. Although, did Hodgson or Capello do perfect? I think they did. One of those two did, didn't they? So 8 wins, 2 draws, and flying through the qualifiers. There's always this weird sense with England that they don't get tested in the qualifiers. They absolutely coast into all these tournaments, and then when it comes to a big game in the tournament, we all complain. We haven't played any big games. We don't know what to do here. There were the World Cup finals. And look, you're being revisionist if you're going to criticise the 2018 World Cup now. It was the best tournament since 1990 and 1996. Remember the difference between 1996, that semi-final, we were on home turf with a really, really good chance of doing something. In that 1990, I feel, was harder. I feel 1990 was the best tournament team, as opposed to 96 was a great, exciting team with Shearer and Sheringham and Gascoigne and Venables. But I feel 1990 were hard to beat and eked their way through to a semi-final penalty shootout. I think we can all safely say this was the best tournament team. May not have been Hoddle's brilliant team in 98 that went out after Beckham was sent off with Owen and Shearer and Beckham and Ince and Adams and Seaman and all those great players. May not have been Sven's 2002 with Owen and, oh God, a hell of a team there. Crikey, Neville, Campbell, I suppose, is Lampard and Gerrard coming in there. But this team were well organised, hard to beat, good at defending and good at set plays, and had a good striker. That sounds like a recipe to go well in a tournament to me. And through they went up to those semi-finals, and then it was said, did they run out of steam and did they come up against a team that had those qualities, good at defending, well organised, good at set plays, and then Modric and Rakitic, a couple of elite, world-classy quality players that we've either had in Gascoigne or Letitia, people like that, Hoddle himself, I don't know, Tony Curry way back when, Rodney Marsh. Have we had these players and not managed to put them in the framework to, when the going does get tough, to just have that edge in these games? Look, no one expected a World Cup semi-final. Expectations were lower than they'd ever been. It was a good job there, wasn't it? Nations League, then semi-finals. So one better than they've gone this time, but losing to the Netherlands ultimately. I think there was a bit of a sense that if England were going to kick on under Southgate and really challenge for a major tournament, maybe they could have at least got to the final of that one. God forbid, even won that Nations League. Just what that would have said. I know people think they're glorified friendlies, don't they? Again, qualifiers, boff, 21 points from 8 games and comfortably qualifying. And then, of course, we get COVID and the tournament doesn't actually end up happening properly this last summer. So Euro 2020 is essentially going to be in 2021. Now, so look, how has he done, Southgate? If we're looking at the past, which we are allowed to, it's in the main good. Qualified for World Cup 18, you can't do any more than that. Semi-finals, everyone was happy with that. Maybe as a springboard for something better as well. Semi-finals of the Nations League, oh, if we could have gone one further, everyone would be happy. Qualified for Euro 2020. This, or 2021 as it's going to be, this Nations League failure does feel like the first mark against Southgate now, doesn't it? And the development forward. And we mentioned going into team number 2 for Southgate. I've just put the question up there, has he peaked? And this is the worry, isn't it? There is the World Cup quarter-final, July the 7th, 2018. England beating Sweden 2-0. That is the peak so far, and that was 2 years ago. And maybe that's an unfairly high standard to hold him to winning a World Cup quarter-final. But there is a sense since then that are we trending either neutrally or slightly downwards? If you look at his team there, he's still trying to use a number of those players. Pickford's there, Maguire's there, Walker's still there, Stonesma, Henderson is still there, Trippier is still there, Kane and Sterling are still there. You've then got Ashley Young, who's now kind of Ben Chilwell. You've then got a double pivot in midfield where you've got sort of Rice and Henderson. And Lingard is now a wide forward. And we'll talk about that particular wide forward that has come in that might be the one to build the team on top of now. But there's a sense that he still tried to eke more out of that team. And maybe he just needs to develop now and go into team number 2. Could he do more with the squad? So this is the reasonable question. Again, this is not a hit piece. This is not an overly emotional England have lost the game and I'm some England fan crying into my YouTube channel. I'm not, but I think it's a reasonable question to now say, right, if you're not using a John Stones and a Dele Alli or an Ashley Young or whoever was in that squad that now is not making this team up, it's reasonable to still build your team around Harry Kane, who's clearly a world-class striker, Raheem Sterling, who's done it at a very, very high level, and those other players that he trusts in the unit. That's fine. What do you add now? And the obvious thing is that you're changing the system ever so slightly, and it then brings up Marcus Rashford and Jack Grealish. And please, let's not go into Grealish derangement syndrome. Let's have balanced opinions on Jack Grealish. He is neither a terrible player or the best player in history. I don't think we need to get into that binary nonsense. He's clearly a very good functioning player in the Premier League, outputting very good numbers, doing very well for Aston Villa. And when we were talking about England getting to the semi-finals and Rakitic and Modric just having a little bit too much for us, I wonder, is he now one of the guys who could, in a big tournament game, if he's given a long now run developing in the England team, could he be one of the ones to unpick with a dribble or, God forbid, winning a penalty or an assist or a goal? I wonder whether when people were talking about Modric and Rakitic, whether Grealish could do a similar thing going forward. Look, the squad is decent. There's this question over Pickford in goal. I won't go into that. I think it's a nice, easy dartboard for England fans to throw darts at. But yeah, maybe there's a question there. The success and failure of this team and Gareth Southgate's tenure going forward does not depend on who's playing in goal. I really don't think that's the case. That's a tweak that may have a small to negligible influence, I think, going forward. Obviously, a good goalkeeper improves any team. But it's not the big issue. The big issue, I think, is can he set up a team with these players he's using that has those qualities that 2018 had, good defensively, solid, consistent, know the system, but that can transition with pace now and essentially do what Belgium did, take your chances and then hold out in a game. This trend now is 3 centre-backs, double pivot, wing-backs, and 2 narrow forwards and 1 forward. That seems to be where elite football is sort of headed. So many people are playing that system, and Southgate is doing that. So you have a back 3 and a front 3, and then out of defence it can be a 5-4-1. And England couldn't break down Belgium's 5-4-1, but they want to be the team that get themselves in the front, like they were in the 2018 World Cup. And it was often set plays or Harry Kane scoring penalties or what have you, but it worked. Can they add that pace and that transition? And look, there's a lot of things that he's trying to do there. If you look, you've got young players and formed players, Calvert-Lewin, Abraham, Mount being brought in, Rashford still, maybe got his best years ahead of him. Bellingham has come in now. And Saka, when we're talking about pace on the transition, wing back one side, you've got maybe Reece James who can understudy and then take over from Trippier in the end. There's a lot that he can work towards going forward, is what I would say. But I know people will say that it's a downward trend now, Ben, or it's a neutral trend and everything needs to be torn up and started again. And hey, you never know. That might be the right thing to do. The only example I can think of that working is Chelsea with Roman Abramovich. And look, just keep things fresh, keep changing the manager, keep the standards high and keep winning. And they did. But for that example, international football, you can look at Germany under Joachim Löw, and they just kept him there and they kept it developing. It was 3-4 major tournaments, and then in the end, that big World Cup victory for the Germans in 2014, wasn't it? So what are the expectations then? Southgate has got this contract. I'll just flip to the next screen there until 2022. So there is essentially now 2 tournaments in 2 years. So all of those 3 factors, 2 tournaments in 2 years, and the manager has a contract to the end of the second one, it just doesn't seem feasible that you do change the manager. Or if you do, if you are in that feeling, actually needs to be done right now, doesn't it? So someone gets a run at it. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've got the guy in situ who's done the job for a long while. There may be people at the FA who'd want to give him a new contract now for another couple of tournaments and do the Joachim Löw thing and have someone in there. Try and get someone in there for 8-10 years. We did say many, many times analysing England, stop changing the manager every 2 years, every 4 years. Keep someone in for 8 years. Make the cycle longer than 4 years. So, look, you know what it's like with England. When one thing's done and it doesn't succeed, they want the other thing. When that thing's tried and it doesn't succeed, they want to go back to, the previous. You know what I'm saying, this binary back and forth. So, look, there's the nemesis, Croatia, that won the World Cup semi-final. Scotland have qualified, and the Czech Republic. England qualified ahead of the Czech Republic, didn't they? They did lose their only game to the Czech Republic. However, the expectation in those Euros will be that England will get through that group. They may draw or lose to Croatia, but it's expected that they will win and draw or win both games against Scotland and the Czechs. Obviously, the pressure goes on because the first game is the Croatia game. You would much prefer that to be the last game. However, if Gareth Southgate does not reach the semi-finals minimum and have a good bash at getting to the final of those Euros, especially being games will be in London and in the British Isles and the UK, I think there's going to be a growing sense against him. So he's under pressure. But then again, I reiterate, he's got a contract to 2022 and you've got that next tournament 1 year later. Those would be the expectations. What it says there is long-term aim versus short-term gain. And again, I can't sit here and say that keeping him up until 2024 or even 2026 and going the whole 10 years coast to coast will work. Neither can you. No one's got a crystal ball. And I also can't say that the right thing to do wouldn't be chop it now and go fresh. And, that is the way to do international football. Bring in a man manager every 2 years and let them go with it. The players are good. What needs to be done? You can't transfer players. There's no recruitment in international football. You use your representative teams at under 18 and under 20 and under 21 level, and that's where the players come from. So I don't know. You let me know. Is it long-term aim versus short-term game? Let's put the first slide up again. Where are England going under Southgate? My view is we are at a crossroads, like I say, halfway between Southgate Team 1, which got to the semi-finals of World Cup 2018, and Southgate Team 2, which may do these next 2 tournaments and be built around Jack Grealish off Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford off Harry Kane, and Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham starting to come in. The tweaks at centre-half, is it Mings and Maguire and Walker now? Is that the guys to get you through? You would think Southgate is looking at what team would he line up for the 2022 World Cup final if he had to pick it now, knowing that some young players will come through, which players will still be there? You'd assume people like Jordan Henderson will still be playing at elite level and able to do a job for England. Harry Kane, of course he will still be. He's probably got another 6-8 years even at the top level, a player of that quality. So my view is he's at somewhat of a crossroads now. He needs to build Team 2. Personally, I don't think changing him makes a whole lot of sense. I think you can take a view at the end of the 2022 World Cup and say, right, you've had World Cup 18, you've had Euros, you've had another World Cup. That's the classic tournament cycle. And you've also had the Nations League stuff in between now. I still think there is some argument that a double cycle and go 2016 to 2024 or 2026 might might even be the thing, even that 10-year cycle. Give him the chance. Because my question is always, what else are you going to do? Unless there's a superb man management guy who's good tactically in game, what else do you do at international manager at short-term level other than pick your tactics, motivate, and basically plan in 2 and 4 year blocks? There's no recruitment. There's no day-to-day and developing a pattern of play like a Bielsa. I don't know, he was good at international level. Has done at Leeds. Maybe it's a bad example, that. But you take my point. It's not like you're going and you're improving players. And that tends to happen not at nations like England, where a Hiddink at South Korea and a Bielsa, like I say, with Chile, managing to do that. But it's not going to happen with England players. They've been pulled in 800 different directions already, playing in the behemoth that is the Premier League. So, look, I'm rambling a little bit now. I think what I'm saying is I need to see Southgate's team number 2 start to form and see who's going to be playing. It's like 200 days to the Euros. So, are we going with Kane, Grealish and Sterling? Is that going to be the permutation up front? Are we sticking with this? If Bellingham is coming in and Foden are coming in now, work them, get them in. There's 2 tournaments in 2 years. They need to be ready. That's what we want to see developing. I think Southgate has done a good job so far. This is the first blot on his copybook, isn't it? This is the first cross, this failure in this Nations League. Let's not be too harsh and go too mental. But we are at a crossroads. And in answer to the question I've put up, where are England going under Southgate? Well, they're going to the next 2 tournaments, I think, but with signs that the team isn't quite developed into Southgate team Mark II. Let me know what you think in the comment. As ever, I'm trying to keep this channel balanced and sensible. We don't need to have evisceration of the character of poor Jordan Pickford in goal, which seems to be the go-to thing. We don't need to have Jack Grealish derangement syndrome, where he's either the greatest player that's ever lived or the worst player that's ever lived. Come on, be sensible, for God's sake. We just seen a ridiculous US election where everything is so polarised, and then the sides are polarised, and then they completely swap sides as well. Let's stop it and be sensible. We don't need to have either Southgate has to stay for 10 years or he needs to be fired. Let's have a sensible conversation about where England are going under Gareth Southgate. I think I've given my thoughts and I would love to hear yours. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.